thank you for having me and unmuting me. I guess that's the most famous phrase this in 2020 because of COVID is you're on mute. All right. So again, one thing I want to correct, I do have a Wikipedia page. You can actually go find it. So again, my talk is going to be very different than the prior speaker who talked about ending aging and doing things around biology. Mine's going to be giving you some life lessons as all of you who are in high school plan your journey over the next several decades. So one of the things that is pretty clear is that your parents' generation, i.e. my generation, has a certain mindset and a certain cadence. So you graduate from high school, you get a college degree, and then maybe you get another degree and so on and so forth. As soon as you finish that, you get a job. And as soon as you finish that, you need to find a life partner. And as soon as you finish that, you need to have kids and so on and so forth. And this whole kind of journey is based on the experience of your parents. And so that you've done all this stuff and then you hit retirement age or whatever age that is when you want to kind of quit what you're doing. That's typically, let's say 60 or 65. And then you kind of go, gee, I wish I had slowed down because now I have another 30 years ahead of me. So that was because the process that your parents set up for you was based on their age expectancy. And the age expectancy of the previous two generations was something like 75, 80 years, right? But your generation, that's quite different. So what I want to talk about you is a pathway for this generation, your generation to follow. And your generation, the life expectancy is about 100 years. And you can look this up on based on recent studies as well. So the question is, why do you need to hurry so quickly by getting a high school degree, a diploma, a college degree, maybe a couple of college degrees, getting a job, getting all this going, and by the age 25 or 30, you're set, and then you work for 30 or 40 years, you retire, you're still 65 or 70, and you still have 30 years left. So why not kind of follow your passion, take some risk as you kind of go through your life journey. And I'm going to use some of the examples from my own life to describe what this process could look like for all of you. For example, when you graduate from high school, maybe you take a gap year before you go to college. Get your college application done, get a deferred acceptation for the next year, and then you have a year. I'm not telling you to kick back and relax, but do something meaningful. Maybe you've had something on your mind that you want to just get done, follow that. So maybe take a year off. When you get your degree, maybe you take a gap year at that point in time as well. So again, these are the kinds of things that all of you have the opportunity to consider that the previous couple of generations did not have. Okay. And then, maybe you can change your life journey as well. You maybe get a degree in biology and then you think maybe you want to be in computer science, right? And again, it allows for all this changes to happen because the life expectancy of your generation is so much greater than 2 generations ago, okay? So what I would urge you to do is to follow your passion and to take risk. What do I mean by that? And let me kind of share some of my life examples with you as well. I had a comfortable job in the manufacturing sector till 1982, a long, long time ago. When I met a consultant who kind of looked at my background, he says, hey, you have an MBA, you have some computer experience, someone like you should be in Silicon Valley, okay? I had no idea of Silicon Valley at that time. I was living in Houston, Texas. So how does one even find out about Silicon Valley in 1982? There's no such thing as everyone is used to today called the internet. So I had to go to a library. I had to find some old newspapers from San Francisco and so forth to find out what even Silicon Valley was all about. And then I had to write letters to companies in Silicon Valley that might have openings. Very, very, very different proposition in those days. But I was curious and I took that risk because I had no idea what Silicon Valley was. I had a comfortable job, but I wanted to try something new. And I was only 27 at that time. So it was a great time for me to say, hey, you know what? I'll try this. If it doesn't work, I can always go back to my manufacturing job. right? Luckily, a company in Silicon Valley actually thought I was halfway decent to at least interview me, flew me out to the Bay Area and gave me a job. And that's how I moved to Silicon Valley, because in those days, it was really a few crazy people who said they were going to change the world. This is 1982, right? A company called Oracle was only $1 million in revenue. Apple was only 500 million in revenue. So these were very tiny companies in those days wanting to do all kinds of incredible things. And nobody ever knew if any of them would succeed. Of course, my journey was a little different. I didn't join one of those companies at that time. I joined a startup. And again, like most startups do, they really do well in the first 2 or 3 years. So this company I joined doubled every year, and then it went chapter 11 and went bankrupt. And here I was 3 years into my journey in Silicon Valley trying to find another job, right? And then later on, I went to a larger company called Oracle, and that was a great journey for me. I still had the bug to go back to a startup. So I left Oracle, went to another startup. Again, this was initially a very good journey. The company started doubling. And again, after 3 years, the company went bust. Again, I don't know if there's a pattern in my life that every 3 years, a startup I join goes bust. But I was lucky enough in my third attempt to be part of a company that was going to go public. I was able to be part of the process to select bankers, to do the IPO roadshow, to do all that great stuff, and to be part of a very successful company that went public. And again, so taking risk means you're not going to succeed maybe the first time, maybe the second time, not even maybe the third time. But if you have the passion to pursue a journey in your life, you will do that regardless of the success you have, initially, right? So that's why I'm urging all of you people who are in high school, I wish I was in high school again and could take these risks, to go out and do the impossible, to try to do things that you're passionate about. And, you really are on the sidelines, on the fence, thinking, should I do it or should I not do it? I urge you to go do something when you're young rather than do it when you're 50 or 60 years old and you can't take those risks at that time. Okay, so I would say that's one big thing for you to consider. The next thing I would say is a lot of you, I don't know if you've thought about either getting a mentor or even if you have a mentor today. And that really, I think, is another significant thing for young people to get at an early age, is to find a mentor, someone who can help you with your life journey, someone who can really support you, someone who can also kind of kick you in the butt if they have to, someone who looks out for your interests. And I'm not embarrassed to say, even someone like me, who now has a Wikipedia page, actually, I have a mentor. In fact, I have my every 6-month call with my mentor tomorrow. So again, if you don't have one, please consider one. And I'm not saying this should be someone in your profession or in your area of interest. It's someone who's older than you, who's kind of seen life a little bit more than you have, who's willing to look out for your interests and to be able to help you in your journey. Okay, so I would say these are all the different things in the pathway for you as you get from your age now, which is 14, 15 to 18, to maybe getting to that century mark, in a few decades. So those are some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. And a couple of other pieces of advice also for you to consider is, as you undertake your journey, also consider the network of people you're with. Again, this is very easy for me to say, but I've gone through this many times and I've learned hard lessons. And that is, you got to have people in your network who are positive, who are supportive, and not people who are negative and who lead you into trouble. So this is something when you're young to really look around and assess all your friends at this point in time and put them in categories. Are they positive? Are they supportive? Will they help you? Do you have fun with them? And so on and so forth. But really stay away from people who can get you into trouble, who can use peer pressure to their advantage, who can also be negative influences in your life. So really run with people who are like you, who are positive, and can really help you. And I think that's also very important at a young age, because a lot of people run with the wrong crowd and get into trouble, and your journey gets sidetracked, and you've got to really try much harder later on in life. So I think that's another thing a lot of young people really don't sit down and assess. But it looks like all of you here are very much a crowd that really wants to succeed, a group that really wants to network. And for you to be here on a Saturday afternoon and evening really tells me a lot to be on a Zoom call. So I would say that's another thing as you consider your journey. And also put yourselves in doing things that are uncomfortable to you. So just following things that are comfortable to you is one thing, but trying something that's uncomfortable is also something you might want to consider as you kind of mature as an individual and turn into an adult. And what do I mean by that? Is a couple of years ago, I'd never climbed any mountains. I was never a hiker, but some friends of mine called me and said, would you like to join them on a journey to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? I mean, this is the highest peak in Africa. It's a pretty strenuous, climb. I had never done this before, but I did that because I wanted to make myself uncomfortable. Even though I was over 60 years old, I trained. It was hard work. I went to the mountain. It was a very strenuous journey, treacherous, and lack of oxygen at higher levels and so on and so forth. But at the end of it, I reached the summit, 19,500 feet, highest peak in Africa. I was able to see all the plains and everything below me. It was such a euphoric experience at the end. But, I forced myself to do something that I wouldn't normally have done. And that's something I urge all of you to consider as well. Once in a while, take risk. I'm not asking you to take undue risk, but take risk where you can be prepared for it. You can actually do that. And when you accomplish that, it really gives you a very, very special feeling. So those are some of my thoughts for your life journey, for finding a pathway for you as you kind of undertake this effort. I want to spend the next few minutes actually answering some of your questions that you might have. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Very, very inspiring journey. So I think our very first question for you is a really simple question. That'd be, how do we evaluate what makes a good mentor, and how do we find a good mentor?
Yeah, very good question. And again, this is not an easy journey. And in fact, I'm thinking of writing either a short book or something about this process. I discovered my mentors by accident, where there was one person initially was a boss of mine in one of my early companies, and he kind of took me under his wing and became a mentor without even realizing that. But my next one that I have now, was more of a deliberate process. You've got to look for someone who's older than you, who has much more experience in life than you, and also you got to find someone who can be supportive of you. They don't need to be they need to be your biggest fan, but they also need to tell you things when they go wrong. Okay, so it's not just telling you things that you're doing well, but also point out things you can improve on. Really, sometimes push you, and so on and so forth. So I think this can be either an older relative, it could be maybe even a teacher, it could be a professor. But I would say that it's a process you build slowly. It's not something you go to someone and say, can you be my mentor? It's a process of going to them for some advice, seeing how they work with you. And then a lot of times there's mutual, admiration and consent. And so that can happen along the way. But like I said, if you don't have one, start the process. Just go talk to some people older than you and kind of find your way through it.
Right, absolutely. So our next question that we have for you is, it's a two-parted question. I guess the first part would be, so many entrepreneurs find success in their early 40s or even some their early 50s. The issue is that old entrepreneurs don't often get funding unless you're a serial entrepreneur or a well-known entrepreneur. So furthermore, venture capitalists prefer younger entrepreneurs. The question is that can you become a successful entrepreneur in the latter half of your life without prior success?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I didn't mention in my own personal journey was I set a goal for myself to be independent at age 40, and I failed and I became independent at age 41. And so after that, I've been an entrepreneur for the last 20 plus years. I've started 3 different networks, which you can kind of look up my Wikipedia page. One is called the Enterprise Network, which is a group of 100 CEOs in the software industry. And again, I started that from scratch and brought that network together. My second network is called the Corporate Eco Forum. It's a network of 70 of the world's largest companies to really help mitigate climate change and climate risk. And I know the Sustainable Development Goals are a big part of your group. So check out that website. It's Corporate Eco Forum or ecoforum.com. The first network I said of tech entrepreneurs is enterprise.sandhill.com. And then my third network that I started is Indiaspora. It's a network of Indian American leaders. It's indiaspora.org. And again, I started these 3 networks as an entrepreneur after age 40. Again, now, did I need funding? Yes, I did. But I chose to bootstrap these organizations. But I think I might have been able to get funding as well. It depends on how good the business model is you have for that entity. It's also, like I said, how good your network is. It depends on a lot of things. So I know Silicon Valley in general has this appreciation for younger talent and young entrepreneurs. But I think if you have worked hard enough to form a good network and to have a good mentor and stuff like that, I think you can still be an entrepreneur after age 40. And I've seen several other people in my network who are older people actually start companies, even one as late as age 50, start a new company and get funded. But definitely there's absolutely a bias towards getting, young entrepreneurs for sure.
Right. Okay, so going back to how you discuss, mentorship, we have another question relating to that, which would be, so how does one know that they're on the right path?
Yeah. And so again, this is part of the journey, a part of forming a relationship. So let's say you need to seek out a mentor and you've got 2 or 3 people, you need to spend time with each one. You need to be very open and honest and vulnerable, telling them your challenges, your problems, your skills, your weaknesses, and so forth. And I think it's that iterative process that'll make you feel whether you're comfortable or not with this individual. So I think try it out with 2 or 3 different people. Don't just pick one. Try 2 or 3 people, go to them, talk about where you are in your life as a high school student, where you want to go to college, what you want to do in life, discuss the broader things that are on your mind. And I think you'll see some people might be better at relating to you than others. So I think I would say, give it a try 2 or 3 different people. I think, you'll find one for sure.
Right, absolutely. So our next question for you is relating to more towards your personal experience. So this question is, what inspired you to launch climate initiatives in diaspora? Would you suggest that people join existing initiatives or, start their own?
Yeah, really good question. As an entrepreneur, a lot of times when you think of an idea, I think you think you're the first one who's discovered something, but I think you do need to do your homework to find out if this has been done before. And so I think that's something we all have to recognize. You may not be the first one to have thought up of something. So before you start anything, do your homework to see if there are other models, other opportunities that overlap with your idea, and make sure that yours can stand on its own. So I think that's something that has to be done, because you don't want to be a copycat business at any point in time. You're just like Uber, you're just like Facebook. You don't want to get into that kind of challenge. So I would say, really, I think you need to do your homework. The other thing is, one of the things I do early on as an entrepreneur is to start getting an advisory board of people who are in that space. Let's say you're working in financial services or you're working in the automotive industry. Try to get some advisors who are experts in that industry segment you're in. And so they will also help you, vet your ideas, reposition it, make it better than when you started. So I think when I started each one of these networks, I literally talked to 100 people in each one of those industries. So when I did my tech network, I talked to over 100 CEOs in tech. When I started the Eco Forum, I talked to 70 different people who are in the Fortune 500 executive class. And so I think you really need to really do that homework and that prep work before you figure out if it's a good thing to start. And so I would say that things to do with climate change, we can all do more. Are there other networks like the Eco Forum? There are some other networks as well, but the problem in some cases is so large. You know, the 17 SDG goals, even if every world government is 100% behind it to try to do it by 2030, we could use every one of our 7 billion people on this world to help as well, right? So I think these are big problems. And so starting something in the climate change space, I think more the better. I wouldn't say, just because there's an organization that has some overlap, you shouldn't start it. There's some special cases like climate change where I'd say more organizations, the better, more people involved, the better. Because I think, guys, I mean, as you know, I mean, we are the older generation. You're the guys who are going to inherit this world beyond 2030 and take it to the next level. So we all need to chip in. We all need to do our best. And these goals are daunting. I mean, there's only 10 years to go. And hopefully there's a sense of urgency now to get these goals, delivered on time.
Right, absolutely. So I think our next question is really more towards your background as an investor and venture capitalist. So would you recommend day trading? What are the downsides of being an investor who actively trades daily, and what are the upsides?
Yeah, I'm laughing because my daughter has a Robinhood account. I'm sure a lot of you guys have as well. I think it's got kind of a flavor of the month. I'm an angel investor. I started before the category was coined. And I started in 1996. So I've been doing angel investing for 24 years. I've done over 100 deals. And one thing I have to tell you, half of them have failed. Okay, I've written off those investments. And you get one or two big home runs and it makes up for all the losses. But I think there's a tremendous amount of risk in angel investing. And I would say if you're going to become an angel investor, just don't do one, two, or three investments. Do a basket of investments because many angel deals fail. Like I said, over 50% of my deals have failed. So that's one thing. In terms of day trading, I am not a big fan of it. I mean, you could absolutely get caught in the whole game and the frenzy and the activity. And I don't know too many people who've actually made money on day trading. So I've never done it myself and wouldn't recommend it for anyone else.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Thank you so much for your insight. I think, we transition on the next speaker. MR Rangaswami, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, we're going to be moving on to our next speaker.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me and good luck with your journey.
Thank you.